Hello, everyone. It's Deb Blum here, and I am really thrilled today to have Claire Cetti here with me. Hi, Claire.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for being
Good.
here with us.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so
Yeah,
excited to talk with you.
yeah, me too. All righty. Well, so I will just say I, for some reason, missed that you have four kids. And so I can't wait for you to tell me how old your kids are, and
hmm
also that you are a certified parent coach. And I'd love to turn over before we even get started in talking about any real the details. Let's just have
hmm
you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, if you don't mind.
Sure. My name is, as you said, Claire Chetty. And yes, I do have four kids. My oldest one is 29. She is my stepdaughter. I inherited her when she was 4. And then I have a son who is 22, another son who's soon to be 20, and my youngest daughter who is 17. So, yes, they're all amazing, vastly different, so unique. Um, yeah, and they're a big reason why I do what I do right now. Yeah,
Which is mostly parent coaching.
parent coaching, coming alongside parents who are really struggling, finding themselves in conflict at home, disconnected with their kids, and so really helping them come from a place of that disconnection and conflict, often anger, and then to a place of calm connection, really understanding not only who their kids are, but really who they are also as people who happen to be parents. And so really recognizing that about themselves as well. So,
Yeah. Do you
yeah.
find that people come into you at a certain, do you have like a pattern for the people who come to work with you? Like, do they come at a certain age of kids, or, is there a certain problem that they just like, you're consistent? I mean, obviously
Mhm.
conflict, but
Yeah. That's a really good question. It's interesting. Most of the people that come to me are people who are referred by other people who have already worked with me, which is great. But oftentimes they come to me with at least one child. So maybe they have three, or two, but they have one that is they're struggling with their big emotions. Like they're just not able to handle it. They feel out of control with it, and they're not understanding them. And so usually it's mom that comes to me.
Mhm.
And then it's interesting lately, I've been working with couples. So it used to be just mom I've worked with, but it's been really fun to be able to work with mom and dad, or just partners, or and just getting them to be able to understand each other, understand their child, and just all the emotions that go along with it. So right now, the people that come to me are people who have known people who have already worked with me.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, that's good.
so
Yeah, I've seen it too a lot. There's a lot of referral business, I think, in the
yeah.
parent coaching space, because I
hmm
think people want to know, like, oh, you've actually
hmm
had good
Yeah.
results in your family, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to be able to reach out more because I think it is a really big, my passion really is to help moms, especially, understand that they can create this family culture that they really desire to have. I mean, I think that really what it comes down to is they really desire to know their kids and understand what's happening and help them, and they really feel stuck and out of control with that.
Yeah.
I was there. That was me. And so being able to realize that you can do that, it is really, it's hard work, but it's possible to be able to create that culture, that family that you really desire to have. And so that's why when I talked about my four kids, that's essentially what I did. And when I first started, that was not what was happening. And so it really is a passion of mine to help others be able to get to that place because it's pretty amazing to be
Yeah.
able to be there.
I'm
Yeah.
with you. I'm with you on that
Yeah.
too. I was just thinking, my
Yeah.
husband said that yesterday. He said, my kids are 17 and 16, and
Mhm.
so our oldest is off to college next year, and and he was saying, oh, like, it's going to be really hard when they go
Mm,
away, because we just enjoy them so much. We enjoy our relationship so much with them. And
mm,
and I think people really do long for that. As you said, that's what they long for in they
mhm,
want that in their lives, but they don't really know how. And I think a lot of people don't know how to balance. um, there's this, like, oh, I'm supposed to raise them to be this certain way, and they need to know this stuff, and they need to be good kids, and they need to
Mm-hmm.
not do these things wrong, and they have all these like ideas in their head of what they need to teach them.
Right.
And then that starts interfering with their ability to have a relationship. But you don't actually have to sacrifice one for the other. That's,
Right.
do you know what I mean? Like, do you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying about that? Like, it's
I
like,
do.
yeah, I think there's
Yeah.
a false perception that like you have to either be strict and
Mm-hmm.
have high expectations, and you have to be a certain way in order to raise a good kid,
Mm-hmm.
or you are going, if you have a relationship, that means that you're being permissive,
Right. Right.
and
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
it doesn't, and that's not played out for anyone that I know so far that has been following this path. It's always no, 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 no. It's actually the relationship that's at the root of them growing into the adults that you long for them to grow into.
Mm-hmm. And the idea too that there's this mixed message that once they hit 18, like I just did a presentation on this. Once they hit 18, like you're all done, like it's over. Now
Mm.
they're off and your parenting journey's done. And, I'm
Right.
just like, I know that when my kids started going off to college, I'm like, yeah, I'm not so hip with that. I don't like that idea, but the fact of the matter is it does change, but it's not over.
Yeah.
And so all along we've been transitioning, getting to this place, but how do we get to the place where when they do launch and they're successful, unique and doing their thing, but they also have the really deep connection with you and actually invite you to be part of their life? Because really what it comes down to, it is an invitation, right? They don't
Yeah.
have to when they're adults, and that's a hard pill to swallow. You're like, whoa, what?
Yeah.
But it is absolutely possible to have them be these independent adults and also be part of their life, which is what I'm experiencing now. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's not easy all the time. I mean, we have to learn how to zip it sometimes, but
Yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah,
that's one of the things that we all have to learn. I think,
yeah.
even as early as we can, we have to learn that. Well,
Right.
so I would love to
Yeah.
hear a little bit more. What was the catalyst for you? Like thinking back to when you first started to do this work,
hmm
or like I guess the first step must have been for you to decide to make it shift in your own home before you became a parent coach, right? So you must
Yep.
have decided
Yep.
you wanted to do something. So do you remember what was happening in your home at the time that had you even looking into this?
Oh yeah, I do. I remember the day, honestly.
Mm,
It's so, it really started when my oldest son was 5. My stepdaughter, she was in between her mom and our house. And so,
mhm,
and I think she was 11. I think she's probably in 6th grade at this time. So my oldest son was 5. My next son was 2.5, and I had just had my youngest daughter. Um, when I first started having kids, I was 3,000 miles away from my family of origin. They were in Boston. I'm in California, and I was
mhm,
the first one of my friends to have children. And yeah, it was hard. I was alone. I felt really isolated.
mm,
I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I really was just, what is this, And so at the time, I had always considered myself to be somewhat patient and really
mm,
calm and whatnot until I had kids.
mhm,
And the anger that was showing up in me was, anyway, yes. So my oldest son was my stepdaughter was 11. My oldest son was 5. Then I had a 2.5-year-old. Then I had a newborn. When the day happened that I
got it, got it, got it.
realized, okay, so I was already experiencing anger, kind of much like what you said, the expectations of, having to be strict, and, I didn't know what I was doing, and I was just kind of like trying to wing this thing. And anyway, there was one particular day I remember I was in the living room, I was on the phone, I remember what I was wearing. And my boys were playing on the floor in the dining room. I'll never forget, like the sun was shining in, my newborn was sleeping, and I got off the phone and I had such rage. I mean, and it came out of nowhere. I didn't, that was the thing, this anger was showing up out of nowhere. It was just all of a sudden be there. And like I said, it wasn't pretty. Nobody was hurt. It was all me, but I'll just never forget, my son looked at me and he was just like, Mom, like this look on his face. And I just was like, oh no, I'm not doing this. Like
Mm,
I am not going to have an angry household. I
Mm,
don't want to have my child looking at me
yeah.
like this. Like it totally became very clear to me that what I was doing,
Yeah.
you know. But at the same time, I said, but how do I change it? I don't, how it's coming up even before I realize it, like what's going on. And literally that was that conscious decision. Like, well, I know what I don't want.
Mm-hmm.
What's the opposite of that? And so really, so I've always been a journaler and being able to write it out and taking a lot of time to think about it. I'm like, what I wanted was this open, safe place at home for my kids to be able to talk and be who they are and
Yeah.
just and not worry that I would either withdraw my love or whatever that might be. So it's just a safe place. But what does that look? How do I do that? And that really was the beginning of my journey. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, what would that look like? Well, I need to just catch it, which is actually the first letter of my cares is catch it, catch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You're even if you're mid yell, like I'm just stop. So that was really the beginning of this process for me, and it's one that evolved over time until as my kids got older, it became more clear what I was doing, along with my own personal growth and development and whatnot. So that was really pretty much the beginning.
What I think that see the most common thing with people is
Mm-hmm.
that with parents is that they want what we're talking about, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I like it. I like this idea. We're going to move away from conflict and we're going to move into connection. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a
Right.
calmer home. All right, I like it.
Yeah.
But the
Sign me
part,
up.
right?
Yeah.
But the part that I think that people are struggling with that I see over and over again is they even like all the things that we say about
Mm-hmm.
everything, like, yep, okay, take a breath. Okay, do this. But the catch it part is actually the hardest part for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you help people to learn to catch it? Because what they're saying, you said it, like it's like you rage comes over you and you don't even know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, who is this person? What just happened? How did I just do that to my child? How did I just lash out?
Yep.
And we're shocked. So, how do you help people in that way?
It's a really good question because it is actually the first thing people will ask me is like, how do you even do that? How do you even, because like you said, we find ourselves in it. So first of all, it's not easy. It does take time, it takes practice, but really what I'll have, I ask people to do is just start at first paying attention to how often you have to. How often is that anger rising up in you throughout the day, and really being non-judgmental, because what ends up happening is they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how often I had to catch myself. I'm such a horrible person. I'm a horrible parent. I'm like, oh my, and I'm like, no. Like, let's not be judgmental. This is all about
Totally.
figuring out how, because what happens now is you get to figure out how did it feel? What's happening to your body? Like, what is going on right before, And so then once you start getting in touch with that, you can feel it coming. So, and then, so yes, at first you're going to be catching yourself, maybe even just after it's like a pressure cooker, you've released it. Even after that, you can catch, go, oh my gosh, okay, well, what did I feel like before that? What am I actually mad at? Because the next part is assessing yourself, like what's going on, how are you feeling, assuming responsibility for that. But you got to catch it first. You understand what it is.
Right.
And so you're right. It's the first step. It's also the hardest part because it really means like kind of going, oh, like admitting all these feelings and emotions and what the behaviors that you're doing.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let me just
Yeah.
say, so what I hear you saying though, what I like about this, so first of all, you're explaining your cares process and like that we
Mm-hmm.
just jumped right into that, which is great. And so the first step is C, which is catching yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to explain what I heard you say is that the first thing we do is set the intention. So that's the first thing is like, I want to do this differently. That's what you did. You were like in
Mm-hmm.
the midst of it
Yes,
with your kids and you were
exactly.
like, I want to do this differently. And you even painted a picture of what you
Mm-hmm.
really want so that
Yes.
you could get kind of on board with that.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
then the next step for a person, I want to hear a little bit more about what your next step was, but I just want to also explain what I heard was the next step was that after you've set the intention, it's really watching. It's becoming more aware of what you do. So like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
how many times in a day are you actually losing it? How many times are you, you know, reactive, or do you, you know, have to stop yourself? And then it's to notice, what does it feel like in your body? What's in
Mm-hmm.
your, like, what
Yep.
do you actually, like, what is, I know for me, it's like my heart starts racing, my arms kind of get a little tingling cold, and I can
Mm-hmm.
feel like a welling up and a real urgency. Like the urgency,
Yeah.
it's like overwhelming, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
those are my indicators. Do nothing. Like,
Yeah.
all right, take
All right.
two. I'm back with
Yay, we're
Claire.
back.
We're having a little
Yeah.
technical difficulty, but hopefully we
Yeah.
can have it sorted out right now. And so let's just jump right back in. So
Mhm.
I think we're going into you explaining a little bit about what was going on with you. So you set so we know now there are some steps about this whole
Mhm.
catching
Yes.
ourselves part. But with you and your process, you said that you saw yourself, you didn't want to do that anymore. You're a journaler. So you started journaling about it and like asking
Mhm.
yourself, like, what do I want? What did
Mhm.
you do at that point? Were you able to just figure this out on your own at that point? Or did you go out and get some support? What happened?
um. That's a good question. I've had my fair share of therapy for sure. But honestly, at that point, this is part of what's really fascinating to me about the parenting, the coaching that I'm doing now is when I look back on that, it really was very intuitive. Um, and it was one of the ways that I learned that my intuition is actually pretty strong, and then I need to start trusting it. So a part of what I try to have parents understand, or moms, or even dads, but like really,
Mm,
right? You really do know, and there's so much information coming at us all the time. Or even like back then, 20 years ago, there wasn't a ton of information, so I'd be out looking for the information for something or someone to tell me what to do because I didn't have my tribe and I did it on my own. So I really did have to rely on myself and what is it that I want and what do I know, and just really leaning in on that. And now, did I get it right all the time? No, that was part of figuring it out, right? Um, and so the intuitively doing what it is I needed to do, which is what makes it so fascinating today when we're talking about mindful parenting, conscious parenting, and in no way, shape, or form am I saying I, created, but I did that naturally.
yeah.
And part of that catching was really being like, I'm mad right now, and so what am I even mad about? And do I have a right to be mad? And part of my anger issue, I think, was I never really gave myself permission to be mad. I was a people pleaser, and I just did what I was told to do. And so realizing too, when I first started having children, I'll speak for myself, the expectations that I felt like were on me, like I had to have dinner on the table, and I had to look fantastic, and I, get back in bed with my husband and have beautiful children, and you know what I mean, like all these expectations without a tribe, without any help. I'm like, this is BS, and I can't do it. And so anger, so like this expectations that I feel like, and that is without social media and Pinterest and Instagram and all,
Yes.
that was just on myself, just in society and what I was led to believe. And so did I get therapy? I did get some therapy, but as far as my process and my journey, it was more about really, what am I mad about? And do I have a right to be mad? I'm like, well, yeah, I do have a right to be mad, but how do I want to handle that anger? I don't want to put it on my kids anymore. So what do I need to do? So that's part of that assessing, like, what do I need? And then learning to be brave and ask for what I need. That took time. That's not easy to do, right?
No, I can't believe how similar our journey was in that way. Like that, I had a lot of the same kind of things, and I want to highlight a few things that. One, I just want to highlight for people to know that like it's available to everybody, even though coaching is super helpful. It
Mm-hmm.
really is in us. It really
Mm-hmm.
is in us, and we
It is.
do have the intuitive. I think intuitively we know how to relate to people.
Mm-hmm.
Intuitively, I can't speak. Intuitively, we know how to how to make a change, even
Yep.
to
Yep.
know what we want, and then to go through this process. I think we are led through it by our, by our own
Mm,
selves. But
mm,
I too, had to start by setting the intention of like, wait, I don't want who do I want to be as a
yeah.
mom? Who do I
Mm,
want to be? And then, like you said, it's like you went through and you had to find the places where you were angry. But what I hear you saying is in many ways, you weren't angry at them per se, but they were
mm-hmm,
like activating anger inside of you. So you were already carrying, you had put all these expectations on yourself, which I did too.
mm-hmm,
Also, back before social media and all that, our kids are at least sort of in the range, the same age
mm-hmm.
range. So I can imagine how much worse it must be for people now. But there was
Oh,
so much,
yeah.
right? There was so much pressure, and those expectations led to resentments. But if we don't acknowledge them within ourselves, if
Mm-hmm,
we don't assess and look at what am I thinking, what am I feeling, why am
mm-hmm,
I angry, well, what do I need to do? And then what you said there is spot on. It's like starting to understand what you need, and then
mm-hmm,
either asking for it or giving it to yourself or making other changes in your life, and not just expecting, like I used to just kind of expect, like, why don't people know, why are people not doing this, why am I so alone? And I was also
mm-hmm,
alone. My family was on the East Coast and I was here in
mm-hmm. Yeah.
California, and
Okay. Yeah.
and
Wow. It is
so
similar. Yeah.
yeah, and that sense of
Yeah.
like I'm the only one, I don't have anyone to talk to. And so
Mm-hmm,
it did become, I was either going to consistently disappoint myself over and over again,
mm-hmm.
or I was going to make a change,
Yep. Yep.
and it's beautiful to, I think it's beautiful for people to know that it's in them,
Yeah. It's
that they
it really
can.
is. Yeah, it is in them, and really being able to filter out all that external noise, you
Yeah.
know. And so that was also like I really like to make sure that parents know that this isn't like easy peasy lemon squeezy. Like, oh, once you know, that's just what's going to be. It takes a lot of work,
Yeah.
and really paying attention to what do I really think and feel about that? Because my natural tendency would just be do what was told,
Yeah.
right? This is what you're supposed to do, right? For an example, when my kids were younger, I was a stay-at-home mom for the first 11 years of my children's lives. And then when my youngest went to kindergarten, I actually went back to work, which was another pivotal moment of my own parenting journey. But when they were in elementary school and I was a stay-at-home mom, it was just like everyone was signing up for music classes and soccer and swim lessons and and all of these things, and in my mind I'm like going, well, I've got three, and why am I going to drive one around while I've got to take this one down for a nap? And so we went home. I didn't sign them up for and I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm blowing it because everyone else is doing it and I'm not. But I don't want you. And my kids are really happy. We like coming home and we were doing our things at home, but I really felt like the odd man out, like not joining that party of like getting your kids set up and buying into that. And that was actually one of the first times I realized, hey, I actually have the power to do it my way, and
Mm.
look at my kids and they're happy. They're not begging me to do these things, and it was fine. Like they didn't, I can honestly say none of my kids really did anything per se until well into third grade. And they're incredibly creative and they found their passion and they found their sports. And it, I really honored what I thought was best for my family at the time, even though it went against what everybody else was doing. And that was very empowering for me. Like, oh, I can actually be different or
Yeah.
feel like I'm doing different and not joining the party or doing what the masses are doing, and really feel pretty confident. And so that was a really good ego booster for but confidence booster for me in my parenting, to trust my intuition and doing what works for me and my kids. Yeah.
So, I wonder something. I have never thought about it this much, but that was similar to me as well. And so I'm curious if there are some elements to this that are, I've seen it with people. The parents that feel have more successfully been the parent they wish they would be, is that
Hmm.
they did choose to tune out other other voices and to do it their own way. And it was about going against the grain. We too
Mm-hmm.
didn't do activities until the kids were probably, it's not that we didn't do anything. We did some mommy and me things, but only when
Right,
I could
right.
bring the
Mm-hmm.
kids with me, like both kids. And I had
Yeah.
a similar philosophy. One of our barometers actually, even when they were much older, was if it's not going to be good for everybody, and that didn't mean that it had to be perfect for everybody, but if it was going to
Mm-hmm.
harm the family and the relationships by doing this, like an example was travel baseball. There was a
Mm-hmm.
time when
Yep.
my older son wanted to do travel baseball, and I said, hey, listen, here's the deal with travel baseball. If you're interested in doing it, this was after a lot of thinking about it. And we said, if
Mm-hmm.
you're interested in doing it, then here's how it's going to have to go. You're going to have to put a little bit of money into it because I need to know that you have skin in the game because it's
Mm-hmm.
expensive, and I want to know that you really are into it. And the second thing is that we will not be able to go with you every time. So you're going to have to actually do some going with other friends, because I can't have our younger son constantly being dragged around for every weekend to other places in the state of California, for one child's sport. We have to find a balance. And
Right.
he came back, he thought about it, and he came
Mm-hmm.
back. That must have been like 8th grade or something. And he said, nope, not interested under those terms. And he didn't want to do it. So
Perfect.
I said, awesome. So it was one of those times where I was like, I had to say what was going to work for us. I wasn't going to, if I had sacrificed something in me that I knew was, I don't think it's going to be right. If we do it the way that, is expected to do it, that would not have worked for me, and wouldn't have worked for our family.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one of the things is I want to highlight again, is like another thing is being willing to go against the grain, being willing to look at what's going to be
Mm-hmm.
best for your family. Is it not doing activities? Is it slowing down on activities?
Mm-hmm.
Is it finding other people that can carpool with you? Like what will make it work? Because
Right.
I think that's a big piece, that people go against themselves in order to follow what the outside expectations are.
Right.
And what I hear that you did was, and I feel like it's really the path is the coming back to, wait a second, I'm the mama. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
know what's going to be best for our family. Like, let me tune out for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I want to tune out the other pieces. I'm going to just come into like, what do I want to create, and what do I need to do in order to create that?
Yes.
Did you journal to do this? Like, would you actually journal about this stuff? Is that part of how you explored it?
Honestly, I always journaled. I mean, all the way through junior high, high school, I was always a writer.
Really?
However, though, when my kids were little, we get busy. So I think there was a period of time where I stopped. But going back to the question of what do I need? I mean, I was also always a runner. So I took up running again because obviously that fell by the wayside with all the expectation, do. I'm like, wait a minute, this is something that I know I need. And so I actually asked my husband, hey, will you support me? And I want to run a marathon. So I did that. But then so in my running is when that was my therapy.
Ah, cool.
And so I really was able to think, and the running it just would clear things up, and I was just get really in that moment. And so to answer your question, my journaling did stop for a while, but it actually replaced it with the thought process that I had in my run.
Nice.
And just get really in touch with. So it's really important to note too that with the assessment, I mean, so yes, we're really important to get in touch with how we feel, what do we need, and to be able to separate where what's ours and who our children are, and assessing them, right? What do they need and where are they at? And so part of that journey for me was being able to separate, this is mine. So say I was angry, right? I get mad and, okay, I'm really mad. I'm angry. Do I have a right to be mad? What am I mad about? Yes, they did X, Y, Z. Maybe they, did something that I didn't like, but I would be able to, say, but this is me. I have to own that anger. And this is them. This is where they're at. And then a third part is like, this is the situation. It sounds really tedious, but this is what I did in order to compartmentalize it and put it in place in order for me to move forward, looking at them and saying, okay, I'm able to separate me. Now I can look at them, which is the letter R, remembering the relationship, right? How do I engage with them? And then the situation comes later. Like, we'll deal with that if there's a boundary that needs to be talked about or expectation. But so when I look back, that's essentially intuitively what I did that really created them to actually engage with me in such a way that I never experienced really in my own life, so to speak, right? And it just kind of emerged to be this really incredible process, both for me and for them. And I love what you said, Deb, when you said it wasn't a no. Like, you didn't say, no, we're not doing baseball because I can't do it.
Right.
You really were assessing yourself, but then you also assess like he really loves this, so he has to. It was like this conversation. So you had his need, and you had the baseball situation. This is what it is. Go think about it. Come back, and you were willing to. So it was kind of it was a yes, a conditional, like it's a yes under these conditions.
Yeah.
And that's just a beautiful way to do that. Like, you really honored him too, as well as yourself.
Yeah, you're right. And before that even was conversations. It wasn't even that I just came to that. I asked him questions about, like, well, why do
Mm-hmm.
you want to do it? And what, why is it important? What is important to you about it?
Mm-hmm.
And that was what helped to inform coming back with, you want it under these terms. I'll give you, here's what where I'd be willing to do it. But you're right. So I'm really appreciating, I feel like that's a really important thing for people to understand, that those three pieces really do matter, because your feelings, what you were feeling, it's not that that's not valid. Your
Mm-hmm.
feelings are very, very valid. It's just that it is a separate bucket. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to blend into the other two. And so
Mm-hmm.
once you can separate yourself and say, all right, yeah, so I am angry right now and I am feeling these feelings. And to remember also that, most of those feelings are historical feelings. Most of those
Mm-hmm.
feelings that are being activated by our children, they are, people use the word triggered, right? We're
Right.
triggered.
Yep.
And when we get triggered, it's usually that is triggering something from us from the past. So
Mm-hmm.
we put that into one bucket: valid, important, but that stuff's the stuff we deal with other adults.
Yes.
It's not the stuff we then go dump onto our children. So that's like, okay, that's over here, and I'm going to
Uh-huh.
compartmentalize. But then what I love is, I really appreciate the separation of what your child is going through, what's their experience, what they're feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and then separating that even from the situation.
Mm-hmm.
That is really magical, because I think there's a lot of conflating of all three of those pieces that happens. Like,
Yes.
something happens and I'm like, I'm mad, you're mad, but I don't want you to do that. And I want to do that. And it's all happening all at the same time. It's like, it's just too much.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
Much
now
to
you're
do.
back up in the sea, right? With the conflict and chaos, and it's all messy, and yes. So it's definitely,
Yes.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so R is remembering the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Yes.
really, and is that part where you're saying, okay, like, I'm going to put myself over here. I'm also going to see the situation, but I want to hone in on my child and what
Yes.
they're going through.
Yes. Because the way I look at the R, Deb, is the R is the glue, right? It's the glue of the family. It's the glue of us with our children. I mean, it's even a glue with us with our partners and our tribe. And so remembering the relationship to me is really that I imagine the line, and the CA is all about me, and the ES, the R is where it flips over, and the ES becomes about us and
Mm,
we. The R is really like, okay, I'm looking at you, and I want to choose to be in engagement with you because I love you and I want a relationship with you. So I'm going to release the need to be right. I'm going to release that power, the control. And right now, it's, you know what I mean? So you're looking at them, and it really is a powerful shift in how you approach. And so now you're starting to respond, and you're starting to versus react, and you're looking at the person versus the behavior. I mean, so there's all these different nuggets that go along underneath that.
yeah.
But it's a powerful shift. Me in my anger in turning it around, like, okay, how can we engage in this? And just realize, there's so many stories I could share that into I like I said, I could not have put words into what I was doing
Right.
until now, when I'm and then after just like reading books, I read Dan Siegel, I read Shafali, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's actually a name for this. Like what? And so I want other parents to know you have that in you. You can do this because we all have it. We're just not listening.
Totally, but that's so. I just have to say that is so. I can't even. I'm blown away by our experience being so similar because that's what I would do when I listened to Shafali the first time on Super Soul Sunday. I actually cried and cried and cried because it was the first time that I ever had words for what I did.
Yes,
I was
right?
like, oh, wait, what I'm doing is a thing.
It's
It's a
like,
thing.
wow, yes, isn't it
So
powerful? It's
I'm with you
amazing.
too. It's like it's
Oh,
really
yeah.
like putting the words on what was, but this, what I hope people take away from this is that because you and I did this without books and manuals and anyone telling us how to do it, what we're actually doing with people is helping them to
Mm,
remember that they
mm-hmm.
know.
You
Like
know,
we're not saying to you, oh no, Claire and I, we know it better. You don't know, we're saying, no, 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 you do know.
mm-hmm.
You do know. We're just going to use the words to help you to remember this
Yes,
that's already inside of you. We want to reawaken the part of you that already knows how to be in a relationship, that already
mm-hmm.
knows how to manage your emotions, that already knows how to look at your own, to assess the situation.
Yes,
So,
yes,
yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I think that's powerful.
Yeah, yeah, and trust yourself, really. I
Trust
mean,
yourself.
and really, it's not easy. So trust me, there were lots of cheers, lots of conflict within myself and trying, but really trusting yourself that you'll get to that place when you really start learning what that feels like. It gets easier. So it does get easier. And all the transitions through infancy to the point of launching, this process works all along the way and beyond.
Right.
And so, yeah, and I love what you just said, though. It's just intuitively that you do know and helping
Yeah.
them get to that place. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what that looks like for every person, too, is different. Some people, and so that's okay, too. There's no right or wrong way to do this. If there was a checklist that said, hey, do this, we'd all be doing this perfectly. We'd all be following that checklist, right?
Right.
So it's,
Right.
it's just not that
Right,
way.
because even though our process was very, very similar, I'm sure it was very different because also we have different children who are
Hmm.
doing, so, but I think that's kind of the point though, is that inside of us, there is a blueprint that we,
Hmm.
our own unique one, and it is going to kind of look a little bit like this, but you're going to have
Hmm.
your own way that you find your way, and it's okay,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So after we've now tipped from really to the relationship, and we're hopefully like, oh wait, I remember now I'm separate from this person, and I really care about my relationship with my child,
Hmm.
and I want to focus on that as the priority. So what's E?
Is engaging with them.
Mm,
So that's through empathy, it's empowering them to speak up, it's exploring with them, it's the curiosity factor. Uh,
yeah.
and so again, going back to that remembering the relationship, and part of that is also remembering what we want to create with them. How do we want this to look, and how are we going to honor that so that we can engage and move forward? So uh, a perfect example of this would be my son, who is in first grade, was having a little bit of trouble in class. Like he wasn't paying much attention and whatnot. And so won't bore you with all the details, but eventually the teacher would give him a slip of paper and saying, Liam did well today. Liam had a little bit of a hard time, and whatever. So I remember sitting on the bench and I'm looking over at the door, and I see this, his little round head comes out. He doesn't see me yet. And he like looks around and and I see the paper in his hand, and I see it throw in the trash. And I'm like, wow. So he comes over and I'm like, hey, how's it going? How was your day today? He's like, oh, it was good. I'm like, so you have a piece of paper? He's like, oh no, she didn't give me one. I'm like, he boldface lied to me. I was just like, so at that point, my initial reaction was like, oh my gosh, you just lied to me. Like, and I'm immediately going down this road like, I'm gonna have this kid who lies, and but then I'm like, okay, catch it, Claire, right? And she's like, he obviously is afraid of something. So remember the relationship. And so what do I want with him? I want him to know that he can trust me. So am I going to blow up? Is that going to teach him that? So I'm like, well, I tell you what, why don't you go back and get that piece of paper that you threw in the trash? And we'll talk about that. And he's all, so he goes over and he gets and comes back, but then engaging with him, right? So being able to say, hey, what made you afraid of this? And why did you feel like you had to throw it in the trash? What did you think mommy was going to do? And that engaging with him at that point. So he didn't necessarily get in trouble, but then later on in the letter S, seeking resolution, that was where I could set like, hey, you know what? I'm on your side, but I can't go to bat for you if you lie to me or don't tell me the truth.
Yeah.
So, I know it's scary. There's nothing you could ever say or do that ever change how I feel about you, no matter what you do, even throwing that in the trash and not telling me the truth. But you need to tell me the truth so that I can help you. So it's that engaging, seeking resolution. Next time, what will you do? And so he was able to be like, so there's safety in that also, to not be perfect and not get it right all the time. Even for kids, they struggle with that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just creating that foundation of trust. That's where that engagement comes in for.
Yeah. And look
With
how
our kids.
fast cares happened in that for you, because you had to catch yourself. You had to catch yourself in your story. Oh no, he's going to be a liar. This is going to be a problem. Like, I'm like, how did I manage to create a liar like this? Whatever.
Right?
Like, what's
Yeah.
wrong with him?
Yeah.
And you had to catch yourself. Then you had to make an assessment. Like, wait, what do I want? What am I feeling right now? And wait, if I can feel that feeling, but I can also be wanting to create. I want my child to know that he can come to me. I want to help him. I want to be, I want him to know that I love him no matter what. Oh, okay. If I want all those things, let me just see. Can I look at him as a human being, not as a liar?
Yes. Right?
And so then you dropped into the relationship and then you engaged with him in such a beautiful way. It's so beautiful to see like that you, instead of, it could have been easy for you to just say, you really could have handled it many different ways, but the way you handled it allowed him to not have to feel shame. You just kind of like, oh, go get that thing. I want, and then it opened up all kinds of conversations. And I'm also just acknowledging that something else that you said was you took responsibility for the possibility that you played a part in why he didn't tell you the truth. That you might, like, what is it that, you might not have said these exact words, but what am I doing that has you thinking that? You can't tell me the truth.
I mean, I think, asking those questions all the time, just going, is there a reason why you didn't feel safe? So what was it that made you feel like that was the best choice for you? I've even had that conversation in the past couple of years with my daughter when she was, 16, wasn't making some great choices, but being able to sit down with her and say, let's talk about this. What made you feel like that was the thing you should do and not be honest with me?
Yeah.
And since she told me some hard things. And so having to be able to be like, okay, you know what, you're right. I have not been totally available. And there are other situations in my life that kind of have me in my own world, if you will. And I had to take ownership of that and be like, you know what, I'm sorry. That doesn't excuse necessarily this, but I can acknowledge why.
Yeah.
And there when you're engaging, and then we get into like, well, what do we do? What are we going to do about this now? How do we get this back? How do we, get to a place where we are back to connection and trust? And boy, I'll tell you, it didn't take very long to get back to that place, because that's what they want, really, more than anything else.
That is what they want. I know. I think we really have this idea that, it's like it's easy to almost objectify our children into these little like things that need to be raised, and they need to be groomed into this person. Like, we're going to make them into an adult.
Right.
And they're actually, what they really want is relationship, just like we all want relationship. We all want connection. We all want to feel good about our relationships. We want to feel good about ourselves. And when we lie, we don't feel good about ourselves. We're doing it because there are always other reasons why we're doing it. And I actually recently had to do that. I had that conversation too with my son, who is 16. And I looked at him, and my words to him were, what matters most to me right now is for me to understand what it is that I'm doing that's creating a situation that has you feeling unsafe to tell me the truth. And so that's what I really want to know. What's going on here? And it is the moment of truth. You get to hear from them what it is that maybe we can't see that we're doing. And as you said, it's also we're human too.
Mm-hmm.
We're human too. We're making mistakes too, or not even mistakes. We just have blind spots, and
Yep.
we have ways that we were, that we were either raised or conditioned by society to be, or our traumas, that
Mm-hmm.
cause us to be a certain way. And then we, of course, are growing and changing all the time. But it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I do
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I do
Exactly.
sometimes act that way when you do say those things, and you know, and it's like
Right.
another eye-opening moment. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm appreciating that this is also a journey of,
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like to me for you, and as well for me, that it's not just changing the way we interact with our children, but it's also the other work that we're doing behind the scenes of exploring, like,
Mm-hmm.
why do we react? Like, what is it
Yes.
that's that first, it's those three buckets. And
Yes.
we do have to do the work
Mm-hmm.
in our own bucket of, what has me feeling this anger. Like you said before, where am I not asking for what I need, or where am I not doing what I need for
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
myself?
Yes.
Or am I not
Yes.
running or exercising? And I know that's going to make me better, feel
Yes.
better.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then so really the cares, eventually the CA really kind of turns into more of a conscious awareness rather than a catch and assess, because the more
Uh-huh.
we catch and assess, the more we learn about ourselves, right? And in that is a lot of limiting beliefs, the thing that we were programmed to believe, like you said, what we're conditioned to believe. Do we actually believe that? Is that true for us? And I actually have the choice now to make it different for me. I don't you can take what you want from your past and what you learned, and you can not take things. And this conscious awareness of that journey too is also, so it really becomes this powerful cycle, if you will, of evolving and growing and just kind of continually emerging. I mean, even in this pandemic, my son, who's 22, chose not to come home and stay in his apartment. And even that is like, what do you mean you're not going to come home? But it's like he's an adult now, like he's
I
making these
know.
choices, and I have to like, come on now, Claire, like this is what it's, so being able to allow that, not always easy, but constantly, what shows up for us,
It sounds like you had to shift away from control
mhm,
too.
letting go of the
Was
control.
control,
Yeah.
well, actually, I mean, for me, control was a big factor. Was that a factor for you when they were younger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I think so. I mean, staying in control,
Hmm.
and feeling, yes, absolutely. I mean, so being able to, that part of like the learning intuitively, what is it that I want, and who do I want to be, and letting go of what it was. So yeah, that's a really big question, but yes, control for sure. I think control there's safety.
Yeah.
You can package it, know what's going to happen, and letting go of control is kind of like, but it's actually letting go of that control that so much comes up. They're like, oh, I didn't know that about you. Tell me more about that. And so you really can find out a lot of great, cool things about your kids and even about yourself if you just kind of let it go and see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
But yet it still shows up, like, I mean, because you have a
I
22-year-old,
know.
and you're like, oh,
Yes.
and you're like, oh, I have to bite my tongue, and like, I can't say, I want him to be here, but he's an adult. And so,
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. I mean, I trust me, that text message, and I'm like, it rose up. I mean, so you asked about like the feelings, like what happens, and my heart rate, my temperature rises, and I can just feel this angst. I'm like, oh, Claire, what's this about? And it's just for me, it's how to explain this, like the idea of having something chosen over me.
mm,
Right? So there's feeling of not being enough and needing to be enough in order to be chosen.
yeah.
Somewhere along the line, that was put program, so like always having to be something in order to be enough and chosen. So when your children start to choose something other than you, ouch, very personal. But it's not
Oh,
personal, right? So that's that journey I had to go down. It's like, Claire, this isn't personal. He can make that choice and choose you in this relation, so it's kind of like this whole, it sounds so crazy, you're having this conversation with yourself about a 22-year-old, but they're still your children. I mean, so it's kind of, if you want to have this relationship with them, you have to really be very conscious about what you're thinking and what you're putting on them and what you have to own. Uh,
Yeah,
So
that was
yeah,
really cool. Thank you for a little like glimpse in your inner process. And it's not
yeah.
crazy at all. It's actually so beautiful and it's so real. And I think it's what we're all dealing with is, it evokes an emotion in us and then we have to go
Mhm.
in and figure out like what is that? Like where is that coming from? And then I saw you looking for what's true for one. So not just like
Mhm.
believing, oh yeah, this is because he doesn't love me, he doesn't love me as
Mhm.
much as he loves such and such, or he didn't pick me. No, no, wait, so that's just the first step. That's just the
Yes.
first step. Then then it's looking for what's really true, and also seeing, is there anything in us that needs to be healed and shored up a little bit too.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
yeah, that's so
Yeah.
sweet, so sweet. And not trying and not projecting onto our kids. Sometimes I'm so thankful when my kids text me instead of tell me something, because it gives me a chance. Actually, not just my kids,
Right.
anyone. Sometimes I'm like, oh, thank God they texted me that. Like I
Yeah.
had a chance
Exactly.
to like have my own experience before. Sometimes I'll let
Uh huh.
people, I also will sometimes let people leave a message. If I
Yes.
know that something's going on between us, I'll let them leave a message first so I can just have a chance to be like, wait, where are they, and then where
Mhm.
am I, and keep a little bit of space in it for a moment before I engage. It's sometimes, if it's a very highly activating situation for me, I'll sometimes
Mhm.
put that space in there on purpose.
Right. Right. Exactly. I mean, so, and if you don't have that, that's where remembering the catching and assessing. So, I mean, it's funny. Do your kids do the same thing? Like right before they're going to tell you something or say something, do they have a certain way? Like my oldest son's like, "Hey, mom." Like in the way he says it, I just know he's going to say something coming, right?
Yeah, 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 totally.
Or my daughter's like, I just got to be honest. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Like, and so even then, I'm just like, okay, whew, where am I? All right, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, I just get ready for it. I mean, so it becomes a default. So that's the self
Yeah,
invention. The more you practice it, this CA, catch assess, or conscious awareness becomes your default, and you can get right into remember the relationship pretty quickly.
I know.
And
I
just
love that.
right.
I love that you actually sort of gave people a path that you can move from, from this catch and assess to conscious awareness, because that is true. It's like
Mm,
eventually it becomes part of who we are. And it's
yes.
easier just to flow and to know that the relationship's always a priority, and it kind of
Hmm.
it's just easier. So I would love when you've explained some of the ways that you feel like it's impacted your life, because
Hmm.
you have a nice relationship with your children and you have it seems like you're a more, maybe you feel more centered and peaceful, and obviously you're nourished by your connections with your kids,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Mhm.
But so are there other things that you might be able to share with us about the ways that you feel your home is benefiting from your cares process, even though you did it intuitively, but now you've put
Yeah.
words on it?
Let me think about that. That's a great question. Well, I see my kid doing it. So I actually see them being very intentional in what they're feeling and coming back and apologizing for maybe a reaction and owning what they're feeling. And so it's the modeling. So the other is the self-regulation uh, tools that it takes to catch and assess yourself and honor what you need and whatnot, because they are watching us do that. And so they learn what it takes to do that. So that was one way. I think that I can see them doing it in their own relationship with their boyfriends or girlfriends or their friends and that sort of thing. Um, I'm going back to your question now. How else did
Yeah,
it
just like
benefit
how
my
you're
home?
seeing in your home. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one way. I think another way, really it kind of also, I don't know if this is really going to tie into this or not, but uh, finding your tribe. I think in our family we have a very, because of this, we have we all suffer from judgment and get judgmental, but then being able to honor that. And so we call it, in our family, we call it taking it to the table. So if somebody has an issue or something like that, like we all actually can sit at the table and talk about it, and everybody can put in their 2 cents and what they think and offer their insight and whatnot. But that took time for me to learn how to do that without taking things personally. And so that's, learning who is your tribe. So creating that tribe within the family, but we all also need our own, like you said earlier on in our conversation, what we're dealing with, our assessment, who do we take that to?
Yeah.
And so that's another way that's benefited the home. Is like, I can actually take that elsewhere. And sometimes, my husband, I can share anything with him. God bless him. He never judges me. I mean, like I can literally he's like anything, and I've never felt judged by him. But however, we sometimes need to have, right? And so
Yeah.
when I first started my parenting, I didn't have that. I literally didn't have that. We had moms groups, but I didn't have that group of people that showed me what it's like to be non-judgmental and to be accepted no matter what. And so when I went back to work, I worked at a college health and counseling center for 11 years. And it was really there that I learned what a tribe was, and so it was there that I learned unconditional love and acceptance. And so all of those things, like finding my own tribe, benefited my family because I was able to bring it somewhere else and be accepted and be myself. And I never felt like, oh my gosh, like you need to make that, or if they had to call me out, they did it in a loving, firm way. And so it was a couple of offshoots of what CARES did for me as far as creating a family culture I wanted here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And, I think that that's just such a great, I think so I'll speak to both pieces. Having your tribe is a beautiful thing. And I think people do struggle to find their tribe where they actually are showing up authentically and they're accepted and loved for who they are. But I think, and I would even go so far as to say, tribes might grow and change too. So like when you have younger kids, maybe it is just having, play groups is enough, and that's all, like, and that works. But then over time, you might, shift and need different things. And I'm also really appreciating that. Yeah. I mean, I'm the same in my house. Like my husband's really great. He is non-judgmental and he's so awesome. But there are also times when it's, we all need other people in our lives who share different perspectives. And sometimes it's other moms, because sometimes you just need like a mom perspective that our husbands aren't, they're just not going to provide it because that's just not what they're doing. They're not mothering, they're fathering. I also really love that your kids are doing this and you're seeing this. And I'm seeing it a little bit too in my house, where more and more I hear them. My oldest son has a girlfriend and I hear him talking to her, and I feel like she's a different person in many ways because of the way that he handles things with her, and their relationship is so much more mature than my relationships were when I was 16, 17, 18.
Isn't that true? Right? I know.
Like you're so much more like emotionally intelligent and wise than I ever was. And, but I have a final question. Well, actually, so I have two things. So for one, do you think, oh God, I feel like this is a loaded question or a big question, but I still want to ask it. You maybe can just even give me like the short answer. We can always go into it another time, and jump on a call again. But do you think that you have to teach your kids this, or do you think our kids are learning it just by being in the family where it's happening? Like, do you think you have to have like sat down and been like, here, this is how the CARES process works. This is what you do. This is how you should be acting. What do you think?
No. I think you is actually doing it. Number one. So I do think that it's just living it out all the time, and so it's not about perfection. And so then there's that, right? When we get it wrong, coming back and go, I totally got that wrong.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've said, especially to my daughter, because it is that triggering, right? She might have my stepdaughter, but we shared her with a mom, fantastic relationship. But my daughter, when she hit teenage years, very triggering for me, my high school experience and whatnot.
Totally.
So it was then that there was a lot of growth that happened to me then, because I literally had to like, oh, whoa, that's my, it was really messy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what I didn't want, I'm like, what I don't want to have is have her have the experiences I had. However, I can't control the experiences, but I can actually engage with her. And so it was kind of like really this bumpy road for a little while. But one thing I guess what I'm trying to get at is I owning it, right? So I would say to her, hey, you know what? This is my first time parenting a teenage daughter, and this is my desire for you. This is what I want for you, and I know I can't control you.
Right.
And I would always let her know that I can't control you. When you go out, you will be making your own choices. I can, however, talk to you about my reasons why I don't want you to do this. I don't want this to happen to you. And what can we do to help you be safe? And having those conversations with her, giving her the insight that I'm trying to figure this out too.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think helped her be able to own her part of things. And so
Yeah.
that role playing in that way. So the teaching, one thing I'll tell parents all the time, the teaching is happening all the time.
Right.
It's not a one and done deal. I mean,
Right.
that's the thing. So, parents look, so this, when we were going back to that checklist that we were talking about, so parents looking at, I just want the strategies, give me the tools to get them to listen or to help, I'm like, well, there's not a checklist. Like this is, it is a
Yeah.
process, and it gets easier because anyway, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think modeling it and teaching, but that teaching is happening all the time.
Yeah.
And like you said, like those boundaries will change all the time, and maybe the expectations might need to change a little bit based on who they are and where they're at and the situation. And so it's kind of, and some things are hard firm boundaries, but when we can kind of hone those and make those few, and like what
Yes.
you did with the baseball, the conditional yes, let's talk about this, it becomes a whole lot more engaging with them.
Right. Well, and then they're able to come
Yeah,
back with like
yeah,
sometimes I'll say something and they'll come back and they'll say, well, what works for me? And I'm
yeah,
like, oh, okay. I
yeah,
did teach you that, didn't I?
yeah. It's fantastic because you'll say them like even in that seek and resolution part, like say there is a boundary that's been crossed or something like that. It's like, okay, so now we're fully connected, we understand each other, we engage, right? So now we're like, okay, what do we do? Like, what do you think the next step should be? Like a consequence, or like, what do you think where do you think we should go from here? And I'll tell you, there are times when they come back with an idea or a consequence, I'll be like, oh, it doesn't have to be that. I mean, we can dial it down a little bit. Like
Oh,
that, right? They really, so it's just being able to see where they're at and being able to come to an agreement. And when you do that, there's so much more willing, the likeliness of them adhering and participating is so much higher.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Well, and I think you're right. Like them being part of it, part of the process. And also just, I think that when they feel connected with us,
mhm,
when there's that connection, it hurts them to disappoint us too, hurts
mhm.
them. That's not what I'm trying for, but it just does. It hurts. Like
Yeah,
if I
yeah.
disappoint somebody that I care about, I
Mhm,
feel hurt by that and I want to make amends. I want to make that better. And
mhm.
so it's really sweet that
Yeah,
yeah. Ah, all
yeah.
right. Well, so I'm noticing the time. So I want to say, I want to ask first, even though I will put all of your links in the show notes, can
Mhm.
you just tell people what the best way is to find you? Is it your website? Is that their best bet? Is to go to your web?
Yep, my website, ccparentcoach.com. Facebook is, I think, Facebook is ccparentcoach.com also on Facebook. And then on Instagram, Claire Cetti Parent Coach. But emailing me, my email will be on the website. It's also on the Facebook and Instagram, but any, yeah, messaging, it's
Great.
really pretty easy to find me and reach me. So,
Great. So I'll put that in
yeah.
the show notes and then you can
Mhm.
also people can work with you one-on-one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's generally
One-on-one, couple couching. I have some groups going on right now, so I do groups. And then also, well, recently just been doing Zoom presentations. Usually I will go in and, speak at different places, but, so yeah, I can come speak at organizations and
Great.
Many different ways, yes. So if
Excellent.
you want to, I can also, Deb, send you I have a cheat sheet for the CARES process. If you want to share that, if or people can email me for whatever works. That
Yeah,
people
I would love that. I
that
think that's,
process. So
yeah, that's really great. I
yeah,
would love that. So, all right.
yeah.
And before we wrap up, is there anything else that we didn't go into that you really wanted to share today that feels really important before we bring it to a close?
Uh, be gentle with yourself, please. You
Mm,
know, this process, it is a process. It doesn't happen overnight, and just be non-judgmental, be gentle with yourself, and just that you actually know more than you think you do. So, yeah.
beautiful. I love it. Those are wonderful takeaways for people. And I just appreciate so much everything that you shared. I feel like, we're such kindred spirits. It was so nice to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yay.
Bye.